Hi all. So this is just a brief informal video on the Mahāmrtyuñjaya mantra. And this is a very interesting and very ancient mantra, over 3,000 years old anyway, maybe 3,300 years old. We really don't know for sure, but it appears in the Rig Veda. And which book is it? It's in the seventh mandala of the Rig Veda. So yeah, it could even be 4,000 years old. And then it appears in the Yajurveda, the Krishna Yajurveda, within the context of the hymn known as the Sri Rudram or Shatarudriya. And that's due to its occurrence in that hymn, it became quite famous because that hymn is the most commonly known Vedic hymn, certainly in modern India and for many centuries now, I would say. But this mantra also is one of the few mantras that is utilized by tantric practitioners. Sorry, one of the few Vedic mantras that is utilized by tantric practitioners, meaning to say, in general, tantric teachers and scriptures don't teach or practice with Vedic mantras, with rare exceptions. One of the other important rare exceptions being the Rudra Gayatri. Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudrah Prachodayat. So there's just a handful of Vedic mantras actually that are part of classical tantric practice. Emphasis there on classical, because in modern India, Vedic mantras and tantric mantras are mixed up together all the time. It's the norm, in fact, and has been for several centuries now. Okay, so this is one of those mantras that bridges the gulf, as it were, between Veda and Tantra. Now, again, most modern Indian people will not see any such gulf, but will rather see the opposite. But for classical tantrikas of 1,000 years ago, there was such a gulf. Okay, so having said that, let's look at the mantra itself in some detail. Now, this Mahāmrtyuñjaya mantra, well, Mahāmrtyuñjaya is a name for Shiva, the conqueror, the great conqueror of death, or the great conqueror of the fear of death, or the great conqueror of fear. And this form of Shiva is also known as Amrteshwara. Amrtesha or Amrteshwara, same thing. And I talk about this form of Shiva in Tantra Illuminated. And this is the deity whose sadhana is taught in the Netra Tantra. So let me be a little bit more clear, actually, before we go on to the mantra, because there was no specific form of Shiva associated with this mantra in Vedic times. It was just associated with Shiva generally, or Rudra. And these are, again, two different names for the same deity, though perhaps they originally weren't. So the mantra gets associated with a specific form of Shiva for the first time only in the Tantric tradition, where it's associated again with Amrteshwara, the Lord of Nectar, who's pictured holding a pot of amrita, nectar, and a full moon, and whose consort is Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi. So anyway, this is not something that's remembered in modern India. The deity Amrteshwara is basically forgotten. But his bijas survive and are sometimes prefixed to this Mahāmrtyuñjaya mantra. The bijas Om, Jum, Sa are the bijas of Amrteshwara. And again, so since the bijas survive, one could say that the deity survives, even though nobody's, in modern India in general, nobody's heard of Amrteshwara. And so there's no formal worship of that particular form of Shiva anymore. But anyway, the mantra is the deity. So in that form, Amrteshwara survives as these bijas that are prefixed again to the Mahāmrtyuñjaya mantra when that mantra is done in tantric practice. So then you get Om Jum Sa tryaṃbakaṃ yajāmahe sugandhiṃ puṣṭivardhanam urvārukamiva bandhanān mṛtyor mukṣīya mā'mṛtāt swaha, or without the swaha, depending on what sort of practice you're doing. Okay. So those of you who don't already know this mantra are thoroughly lost by now, and that's okay. But we'll make it clear. It'll all become clear now as I paste it into your little chat window there for those of you watching live. It's in the comments for those of you watching the replay. Okay. So there in the Devanagari, you see little marks that indicate which note is to be used, which often happens with Vedic mantras. So if you're wondering what those little marks are. Okay, here we do not have the bijas of Amrteshwara, we just have a simple Om prefixed to the mantra. So let's break down the mantra word by word. And again, this mantra is used for overcoming fear of death. It's used for overcoming fear of pain and hardship. It's used for successfully traversing a time of pain or hardship. It's used for healing. And in some ways has become almost like a Shaiva parallel to the medicine Buddha mantra. So the first word is tryaṃbakaṃ. Tryaṃbakaṃ is the correct pronunciation, not tryaṃbakaṃ. So it's tryaṃbakaṃ like a tree. Think of a tree, you know, like a tall wooden plant, not tri. So tryaṃbakaṃ, the three-eyed Lord. This, of course, is a name of Shiva. The one who has a third eye in his forehead is the three-eyed Lord. Tryaṃbakaṃ, right? And yeah, so that word is in the accusative case, meaning it's receiving the action of the verb. Then we have the verb yajāmahe, we worship. So tryaṃbakaṃ yajāmahe, we worship the three-eyed Lord, who is sugandhiṃ, fragrant, sweet smelling. Seems like an odd adjective to get there, but it's interpreted as metaphorically referring to the sweet fragrance of consciousness, of awakened consciousness. It's to savor awake awareness is like savoring the smell of the most delicate, exquisite rose, is the interpretation we get later on. Who knows why this word was there originally, historically. And then we get puṣṭivardhanam, he who increases prosperity, abundance, well-being, everything like that. Puṣṭi has a range of meanings. He who vardhana, increases, puṣṭi, abundance, prosperity, well-being, and so on. Okay, then in the second half of the verse, we get urvārukamiva, and this is a word that's commonly mispronounced by Westerners trying to do this mantra. Ur, you are, right? Urvārukamiva. Urvārukamiva is the correct pronunciation. We get a lot of people dropping that first R. So urvārukamiva. Cucumber, another unexpected word. Cucumber, iva, like. Urvārukamiva, like a cucumber. Meaning to say, like a cucumber separated from its vine. Bandhanān, from bondage. And so then we're missing a verb, which skip over mṛtyor for now. Mukṣīya, liberate us. It's entreating that three-eyed Lord Shiva to liberate us, mukṣīya, from bondage. like a cucumber is separated from its vine. So this is an earthy metaphor, right? This mantra originated, almost 4,000 years ago. So earthy metaphors make sense in those times, right? And the key here is that when you pluck a cucumber from its vine, you can't reattach it. It's not going to happen. It's done, right? So in the same way, the verse is saying, liberate us from bondage, like a cucumber separated from its vine. There's no more bondage anymore. There's no more reattachment of that cucumber. It's a done deal, okay? So urvārukamiva bandhanān, literally from bondage like a cucumber, but again, missing the verb mukṣīya, liberate us from bondage like the cucumber separated from its vine. So we get the word mukṣīya, liberate us, used twice with two different nouns. First, liberate us from bondage, and then liberate us mṛtyor, from death, meaning from fear of death. Probably originally what was meant was liberate us from re-death, from dying over and over, from the cycle of death and rebirth. And later comes to be interpreted as liberate us from fear of death. Mṛtyor mukṣīya. Okay, so this word mṛtyor is a little hard for people to pronounce because it's important to note that Sanskrit has two different R sounds. One is a vowel R, and the other is a consonant R, and this word has both. So people tend to try to pronounce the R's the same way, but they're two different R's. So the vowel R is marked by a dot underneath it. And this is, again, why you cannot pronounce correctly without diacritical markings. It's impossible unless you already know the mantra. So most people on the internet and even in books do not use diacritical markings. And therefore, the mantras that they give cannot be pronounced correctly unless you already know their correct pronunciation. So it's important that the R with a dot under it is the vowel R. We have a vowel R in English as well. We just don't mark it as a vowel, even though it is. So for example, in the word church, there's two consonants, technically consonant clusters. I believe they're affricates. Ch, that sound, same one on either end, right? And in the middle, we have the vowel R, the vocalic R. It's called church, right? So it's spelled, when we write the word church, it's spelled with a U-R, but it's actually just the vowel R, linguistically speaking. So we have the same vowel here, mrt, right? But it's not exactly the same as the vocalic R in church, because the vowel sound pervades the R rather than coming more in front of it or behind it. So instead of mrt, it's more like mrt, mṛtyor. And that second R is a consonant R, ra. Just like in Spanish, it's a tapped R. It's a consonantal R. So vocalic R and then a consonantal R. Mṛtyor. So let's practice that a few times because people do get hung up on this word. Mṛtyor. Mukṣīya. Liberate us. And then we have mā'mṛtāt, and there again we get a vocalic R. So it's in the word amrita, meaning nectar of immortality. Amrita, right? So it's not amrita, that is incorrect. It is amrita. And so in this word is appearing in a particular form. Mahāmrtyuñjaya, meaning not, mṛtāt, from immortality. So the meaning here is liberate us from death, not from immortality. So in English, that just sounds awkward grammatically, and it is a little bit awkward in the Sanskrit as well, but probably not for 4,000 years ago. It was probably perfectly unawkward Sanskrit for 4,000 years ago, but in classical Sanskrit it's a bit odd looking. So mṛtyor mukṣīya mā'mṛtāt. The whole line means liberate us from death, not from immortality. Right? So liberate us from dying over and over, or from fear of death, but don't liberate us from eternal life. That's what we want. So like all Vedic mantras, it's actually quite simple. It's not packed full of esoteric philosophical meaning, because there was no such form of Sanskrit composition way back then. Esoteric philosophical meaning gets read into these simple early mantras by later commentators and then presented as fact. But originally the mantra was this simple. Now this mantra, along with the Gayatri mantra, the Savitri Gayatri, is one of the oldest mantras, and indeed one of the oldest prayers in continuous usage in the world today. Meaning to say, has been in continuous usage for all the time it's been around, whether it's 3,300 years or 4,000 years. This mantra has been in continuous usage that whole time. So it's not about how old it is per se, it's about how much power it's accumulated in being in that continuous usage, you know. Just like people in the Jewish tradition feel enormous the power of connecting to millennia of their forefathers when they invoke certain phrases like Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, forgive my pronunciation. Like that phrase that recurs over and over in Jewish prayers has been in continuous usage for thousands of years, and it's one of the only prayers besides these Sanskrit mantras in the world which has that history of continuous usage. So very, 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 very few, like literally that many prayers that have been in continuous usage for thousands of years. So some people then feel the power of that accumulation of energy from people repeating this devotionally for all that time. How do you sing it? Well, there's a kind of strictly Vedic way to sing it, and then there are modernized ways to sing it, which are considered legitimate. Why? Because if a mantra is only a Vedic mantra, then you can only chant it the Vedic way. But if it has broken out of the box, as it were, and is no longer just a Vedic mantra, like this one, then it can be sung in multiple melodies. So only Vedic mantras are inflexible when it comes to the way you sing them, meaning melody-wise. The meter is always the same. The meter, the rhythm has to be the same no matter what. But the melody that you use with that meter can vary if it's not a Vedic mantra, or in this case, not only a Vedic mantra. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. So a simple Vedic way of chanting, I'm probably not going to do it perfectly because I'm not a Vedicist, right? But it goes like, Om tryaṃbakaṃ yajāmahe sugandhiṃ puṣṭivardhanam urvārukamiva bandhanān mṛtyor mukṣīya mā'mṛtāt. So let's do it again, all together. Om tryaṃbakaṃ yajāmahe sugandhiṃ puṣṭivardhanam urvārukamiva bandhanān mṛtyor mukṣīya mā'mṛtāt. So in Vedic pronunciation, you get this at the end after the final T, and that is a legitimate Vedic pronunciation, even though that sound is not written in that last line. You get the same in Gayatri mantras. Mā'mṛtāt, right? So let's do a different melody. Om tryaṃbakaṃ yajāmahe sugandhiṃ puṣṭivardhanam urvārukamiva bandhanān mṛtyor mukṣīya mā'mṛtāt. All together. Om tryaṃbakaṃ yajāmahe sugandhiṃ puṣṭivardhanam urvārukamiva bandhanān mṛtyor mukṣīya mā'mṛtāt. Om. So that's one melody that I like a lot, and I'll post a couple of YouTube videos of other melodies that I like a lot. It's down to personal preference, or not exactly preference, but what melody is most impactful for you. So part of the reason to share about this mantra is when people are asking about mantras for supporting a loved one who's going through a hard time, such as the dying process or a severe illness, or supporting oneself going through anything like that, anything challenging. This is a great mantra to use for that purpose. Om.